Hey everyone, welcome to Adventures in Everyday Cooking, where every day can be an adventure in your kitchen. My name is Heather and today is another 12 skills video. And today we're tackling bread. Now, before you turn this off, we are not doing sourdough bread. Nope. That is not a skill that you really need to know for the home cook. I mean, it's a beneficial skill. I love knowing how to do it, but it has taken me years to figure out sourdough, and some days I don't even know it, and that's a different video. I do want to do a sourdough bread video because I want to share with you what I have learned, but I haven't gotten there yet because it's always changing what I know, and now that I'm in Texas, anyway, it's a whole different ball game. So no, we're not doing sourdough today. Instead, we're gonna do your basic sandwich bread, and this is made with all pantry ingredients that you probably already have in your pantry, and it is so easy. The only special equipment you're gonna need is a bread pan, which I'm gonna use Pampered Chef stoneware, and a stand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer, don't worry. You can definitely do this by hand. It's just gonna take a little more elbow grease because you are gonna want to knead it for about 6 minutes. Maybe 8 minutes, depending on how it's feeling as you're stretching it. But we're gonna use the stand mixer because it just makes it so much easier. And then you wanna make it more often because it's just so easy. And the only thing you're gonna have to wash afterwards is your stand mixer, your measuring cups, and your bowl. I mean, like, that's pretty cool. And making your own bread at home is way more delicious and healthy than buying it. And you can totally tailor this to your family's liking. If you like wheat bread over maybe a white bread, then definitely substitute the wheat bread. Or if you like a combination of the two, like some wheat, some white, you kind of make the bread and you figure out what your favorite tastes are and you go from there. But today we're just gonna make a regular white bread and I'm gonna show you just how easy it is. Are you ready for this adventure? Let's get started. All right, what you're gonna need is 1 cup or 227 grams of milk, 2 tablespoons or 28 grams of butter, 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, or you could use active dry yeast as well, 2 tablespoons or 25 grams of granulated sugar or 25 grams of honey, 1 1/4 teaspoons or 8 grams of salt, 3 cups or 360 grams of your favorite flour. All right, so the first thing we're gonna want to do is we're gonna wanna scald our milk. Now, most people scald it on the stovetop, and scalding just changes the proteins in the milk. Scalding means you're gonna bring it almost up to a boil just so that little bubbles are forming right around the edges of your milk. However, I like to do mine in the microwave. So I'm gonna get my 1 cup of milk into the microwave for 2 minutes, and I'm gonna watch it and make sure that it doesn't start to rapidly boil. As soon as I start to see bubbles form, I know that it's ready and it can come right out. Of course, depending on your microwave, it might take a little bit less time or a little bit more time. Just pay attention. But I know for me, it takes about 2 minutes for that to get to the scalding temperature. And perfectly at the 2-minute mark, it started to scald. Now you'll kind of know it's scalded by the little skin that forms on the top of your milk. That is totally normal and just fine. So into our stand mixer, we are gonna put the 2 tablespoons of butter and the honey. And if you're using sugar, you could go ahead and put your sugar in now as well. And now we're gonna add that scalding milk right to our mixer. And we're just gonna give that a little mix. And we're gonna wait a couple minutes for that milk to just cool down, because if we put our yeast in right now, it will kill all of that yeast. So if you have a thermometer, keep an eye on the temperature of your milk, and once it gets to about 110-ish, we're gonna wanna add our yeast. But it's gonna take just a second. All right, and that is sitting about 150. So I have about 40 degrees until that is cool enough. And there's not really anything you can do to help cool it down. You can't like cook it for less time because you need the milk to scald so that it changes the proteins in the milk and just makes a better bread. Meanwhile, we can get our bowl ready. So we have a big bowl nearby because we're gonna need to let this rise for about 60 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to oil the inside of a very large bowl like this. And that's just to ensure that when we do the rise, it does not stick. But I'm gonna oil it all the way up to the edges. Even though it's only a 3-cup bread, this is only 1 loaf, it shouldn't go to the top. But weirder things have happened. I have forgotten about a loaf of bread before and it has gone whoo, and yes, it's a little overproofed at that point, but it was still delicious. But getting it out of the bowl was a nightmare. The other thing we can grease, since our hand is all greasy right now, even though it's going to be another hour before we're actually going to get into this, I'm going to go ahead and put some oil inside my stoneware. If you're familiar with stoneware and know how your stoneware bakes, you don't have to put oil in yours. I like to put oil in mine because it does stick once in a while, and there's nothing worse than trying to tip out a loaf, especially of sandwich bread, and having the edge rip off. Alternately, you could put a piece of parchment paper in there and it will lift off a little easier, but I'm gonna go ahead and oil it because I want the bread to just pop out whenever I'm done. So I'm just taking a little olive oil here, and we're just gonna oil the bottom and the sides. All right, and once the temperature is low enough to not kill the yeast, we're gonna pour in the yeast. So here I have 2 teaspoons of active yeast. So there's a difference between instant yeast and active yeast. Active yeast, you have to bloom and soften that harder exoskeleton shell thing. I forget exactly what it's called, but you have to bloom it. There's no questions about it, which is why we're getting it in when it's warm. If you're using an active yeast, you can literally just add it in when you add in the flour and it will work just the same. All right, and we're just gonna give that a mix really well with a whisk. And then we're gonna let that bloom for about 5 minutes or until it gets frothy. All right, it looks pretty frothy at the moment, so it is time for us to lift up our mixer and begin to add our flour and our salt, and we're just about ready for this thing to do all of the rest of the work. This has been so tough. I think I broke a sweat. All right, you ready for this? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add about half of this, and then I'm gonna add all of the salt, and then we're gonna add the rest of this. And we're gonna put it on low to start with because I don't want flour to go flying, because it will go flying. All right, half goes in, and now our salt. We'll let that mix for just a moment. And then the other half. All right, and we're gonna let that come together for just a moment before we turn it to medium and let it knead for 6 to 8 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick my spatula down there and just get it off the sides. This is totally optional. Your mixer will do it for you eventually. I'm just a little impatient. Okay, now I feel confident that I can turn it up to medium. And that's about number 4. All right, and the shaggy dough has already formed. So now we're gonna start the timer. We are gonna let this go for 6 to 8 minutes, and then we'll be back. So enjoy this rapid video, 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, it has been 8 minutes. So your dough will come out and it will look all nice and supple like this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to kind of put it into a ball, and that's only because I like the aestheticness of it. And since it's going in a bowl to rise anyway, it's fine. We are going to set it down in our oiled bowl, and we're gonna roll it around a little bit so we're really sure it is not going to stick. It occurs to me as I start to clean up that I should show you what the dough looks like so you know where you need to be. So the dough should spring back when you pull on it like that and not tear very much. So just so that you know where the dough needs to be. And then we're gonna cover it and we're gonna let it rest and rise for 1 hour. And just like this, okay, it's been an hour, and check out this beautiful dough, all nicely risen and ready for us to shape into a 8x4 loaf pan. Okay, we're gonna turn this out. See, it just pops right out. And now we're gonna shape it into a loaf. So we're gonna go ahead and just roll this into a loaf like this. See that? That's all we're gonna do. It matches the size of my bread, and that is all. So I'm gonna put that down inside my pan. Make sure it's nestled well. And now we're gonna cover this and let it rest again for 1 hour. You could do plastic wrap, or if you have one of these covers like this, you can put that over the top. This will leave room to expand. Otherwise, grease a piece of saran wrap or plastic, whatever, and put it right over the top. Or if you have a proofing bag, that will work as well. And I'll be back in an hour to show you what it looks like, and then we're gonna get it into the oven. All right, see you soon. All right, our bread is risen, and let's take off our top and we'll show you what we have. Look at that, and you'll know it's done when you can push it and it just slowly starts coming back. It's not gonna fully come back, but that means you're proofed and ready to go. So we're gonna get it in a preheated 350-degree oven for 30 minutes or until it's lightly browned. You can kind of tell when it's done if you get your oven gloves, which I love my oven gloves, and you can kind of tip the bread out and knock on it, and if it sounds hollow, then it's done. Another way that I like doing it is you actually insert a thermometer into the middle of the bread, and it needs to read 190 to 200-ish, and that's when you know it's done. So into the oven it'll go, and we'll see you back here when it's all cooled and ready to come out. All right, the bread is cooked, it is out, it is cold, and it looks fantastic. I have to laugh a little bit because when it was rising in the bowl, I thought, I don't remember it being that small, but we're just gonna go with it. We're gonna keep this video going. And then when it was rising in the loaf pan, I also thought, that's a small loaf. Maybe I measured something wrong, so on and so forth. No, I didn't measure anything wrong. I just used a smaller bread recipe. So I'm gonna leave both recipes in the info of this video for the smaller loaf that fits in the 8x4 pan, but I used a 9x5 pan, which usually I increase the loaf by about a cup of flour and then, other adjustments as well. So I will leave that in the info of this video per the size container you use. I just used the wrong one. So it's a little bit smaller. Had I used that cup more and a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, it would have been a little taller and rose a lot more. But anyway, it is what it is. It's gonna be a beautiful loaf of bread regardless. So let's go ahead and slice it up and see what it is on the inside. And I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna slice the whole thing. Well, maybe I won't slice the whole thing. I'll just leave it where it is. But look at that beautiful texture inside. This is a very nice bread. It is very soft. It is a perfect sandwich bread. Or toaster, whatever else, but this recipe reminds me a lot of that white bread that you buy from the store, that is every kid loves because it's buttery and it's light and it's just a really fabulous bread. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you can totally make this into a whole wheat bread by using whole wheat flour. Or you can do a half and half mixture, which is really, really nice. You can also do a sourdough loaf of sandwich bread. That also works out really nicely. But I love doing just a regular white loaf, especially when I'm craving like the peanut butter and jelly and things like that. I know I crave it, it happens. This is a really great loaf for French toast as well because that buttery flavor on the inside really comes through in the bread. So I guess that's it, you guys. Did you enjoy this skill number 3 in our 12 skills video series? Bread is kind of intimidating whenever you first start down your journey of, learning all the things. But if you just continue to work at it and allow yourself to fail once in a while, you really do learn a lot about bread in general. I hope you try this bread, and if you do, leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Tell me if you like it. And if you're gonna make this recipe, tell me if you're gonna use wheat and white flour together, or just white or just wheat. I do a variety of both, and I absolutely love all of them. They're all really good. I've even made some breads with seeds in them. That's a little harder. That's a little bit different a mix. You can't just throw seeds in your bread and think that it's gonna rise just fine. You actually have to do some other things to it. But maybe I'll make a multigrain kind of seedy bread for us one day. But that's it for me, you guys. If you enjoyed that video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. I do videos several times a week, and I'm always looking for the next adventure. So if you've got an idea for me, leave it in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm gonna slice the rest of this up, get it into my bread bag so that we can have maybe some French toast tomorrow. All right, you guys, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.